What if the retirement you've been working for your entire life could change overnight because Wall Street finally moves into XRP, pension funds managing trillions, global banks desperate for faster, cheaper rails, institutional giants who never gamble but always dominate once the path is clear? They are not debating if, they are quietly preparing for when. And here's the truth. The difference between those who act now and those who wait is the difference between freedom and regret. Retirement isn't a someday dream. It's a decision you either control or let others decide for you. Institutions are ready to write the next chapter. The question is, will you let them write your future, or will you step in first and claim it for yourself? Part 1. The first signals. The earliest signs of institutional adoption never come with breaking news. They come quietly, buried in reports, whispered in boardrooms, tested behind closed doors. Over the past 2 years, surveys from Fidelity Digital Assets, BlackRock, and State Street have revealed something striking. More than 70% of institutional investors now want exposure to digital assets. And when they speak about real-world utility, not speculation, XRP appears again and again. Unlike Bitcoin, seen as digital gold, or Ethereum, treated as a speculative ecosystem, XRP carries a different identity. A global payments rail with speed, cost efficiency, and liquidity at its core. Institutions aren't hunting for hype, they're searching for infrastructure. And here's the subtle but powerful truth. When institutions begin to circle, they rarely announce it first. They accumulate quietly, they test discreetly, and by the time the headlines catch up, the positions are already taken. For anyone thinking about retirement, this matters. Because when a trillion-dollar pension fund takes even a 1% position, that's billions flowing into the system instantly. The question isn't whether institutions are coming, it's how soon they'll tip their hand. And that leads us to the next piece. What happens when the most conservative players in finance, pension funds, begin to move? Part 2. Pension funds entering. If there is one signal that tells you the tide has turned, it's when pension funds begin to whisper about crypto. These are not risk-hungry traders. Pension managers are the most conservative investors on the planet, responsible for decades of savings from teachers, firefighters, and everyday workers. For them to even consider XRP means something powerful is shifting. In recent years, internal studies from union pension boards and public retirement systems have quietly examined digital assets. And the findings are consistent. If they're going to add crypto exposure, it must be low-cost, highly liquid, globally connected, and already embedded in payments infrastructure. That description fits XRP more than any other asset. Now imagine the math. A pension fund with $300 billion under management allocates just 1%. That's $3 billion moving in almost overnight. Even in a trial phase, the effect on liquidity and price cannot be ignored. And once one fund makes the move, history shows others follow quickly. For individual investors planning retirement, this is not theory, it's a roadmap. The same institutions that protect retirement savings may soon add the very asset you're considering today. And if pension funds are watching, the next logical players are the global banks already testing XRP for cross-border flows. Part 3. Banks step in. When banks move, the entire financial system takes notice. These institutions are not chasing speculation, they are protecting profit margins and searching for efficiency. And XRP, through RippleNet and on-demand liquidity, has already been tested by names like Santander, Standard Chartered, and key players across Asia. For banks, the draw is simple: faster settlement, lower costs, and transparent cross-border flows. Think about it. Traditional international payments can take days, with hidden fees stacked at every step. XRP completes the same transfer in seconds, with a fraction of the cost. For a bank processing billions in daily volume, shaving just a few percentage points means saving hundreds of millions every year. That's not innovation, it's survival. And here's the insight. Once banks integrate XRP for utility, the line between corporate use and investment exposure blurs. A bank that relies on XRP rails has every reason to hold XRP as a strategic asset. For retirement investors, this is critical, because banks act as gatekeepers. If they're building XRP into their systems, the path for it to enter mainstream retirement accounts becomes inevitable. And once banks validate it, another question rises: what about liquidity? Can XRP handle the tidal wave of institutional money waiting on the sidelines? Part 4. Liquidity and the institutional magnet. Institutions do not move into assets that can't handle their weight. They need deep pools of liquidity, markets capable of absorbing billions without breaking. This is where XRP separates itself from thousands of other digital tokens. With daily trading volumes in the billions and global distribution across multiple exchanges, XRP already functions like a mature market. Liquidity is more than price action, it's confidence. If a trillion-dollar fund knows it can enter and exit positions without destabilizing the market, that's when allocation becomes possible. And unlike speculative micro-cap tokens, XRP offers that level of depth. This is why institutional desks quietly track order books and settlement flows. They know liquidity is the magnet that pulls in the giants. And once liquidity attracts one major player, momentum snowballs. Fund after fund, bank after bank, chasing not hype, but accessibility. For retirement investors, this matters in a very personal way. Because when the same liquidity that draws in Wall Street also supports your IRA or Roth IRA, you're not standing in a fragile corner of the market. You're standing where the money is strongest. But liquidity alone isn't enough. Institutions still need one final green light: legal clarity. And that takes us directly into the fight with regulators. Part 5. Legal clarity and institutional confidence. Institutions don't chase headlines, they chase rules. Without legal clarity, they can't deploy billions, no matter how promising the asset looks. That's why the battle between Ripple and the SEC has been so closely watched. For years, uncertainty held back the biggest players. But once the court confirmed that XRP, in certain contexts, is not a security, the conversation shifted instantly. For banks, pension funds, and asset managers, this wasn't just legal news, it was a signal. A door once locked had just opened a crack, and with every regulatory update, that door opens wider. Because institutions are not waiting for perfect clarity, they are waiting for enough clarity to justify the first allocation. Here's the critical insight. Once institutions have a legal framework they can defend, money flows fast. Compliance departments give the green light, risk managers nod, and suddenly billions move in what looks like a single breath. For retirement investors, this is the hidden trigger. Legal clarity doesn't just protect the institutions, it protects you. When your IRA or Roth IRA includes XRP, you're aligning with the same security standards that make Wall Street comfortable. And with clarity emerging, the stage is set for the next domino: the creation of institutional products like ETFs. Part 6. The ETF Gateway. When institutions want exposure, they don't start by buying tokens on retail exchanges. They wait for a wrapper. And in traditional finance, that wrapper is an ETF. The Bitcoin ETF already proved the blueprint. Billions poured in almost instantly, not because investors suddenly believed in Bitcoin, but because the structure made it safe, compliant, and easy to access. Now imagine the moment an XRP ETF is approved. Every retirement plan, every brokerage account, every advisor looking to diversify suddenly has a green light. Pension funds can add it without rewriting their rulebooks. Insurance companies can allocate without risking compliance. And ordinary investors can gain exposure without ever touching an exchange. The effect would be seismic. Billions in capital could flow within weeks, driving liquidity and solidifying XRP's position as more than just another digital asset. For those already holding XRP in an IRA or Roth IRA, it's like being seated at the table before the feast begins. But here's the truth. Institutions won't wait for the ETF to start their preparations. They're already running the numbers. And once the ETF door opens, the question shifts from if to how fast, which leads to the deeper comparison. How does XRP stack up against the traditional assets institutions have relied on for decades? Part 7. Comparing to traditional assets. For decades, retirement portfolios have leaned on the same pillars: stocks, bonds, real estate, and gold. Each has its place, but each carries flaws. Stocks swing with the market cycle. Bonds lose value when rates rise. Real estate demands heavy capital and carries liquidity risk. Gold preserves wealth but generates no yield and moves slowly. Now compare that to XRP. It offers global liquidity, near zero transaction costs, and settlement in seconds. It is not just a store of value. It's infrastructure, a financial rail already tested by banks and enterprises worldwide. For institutions, that matters. They don't need a shiny narrative. They need efficiency they can measure in dollars saved. And here's the kicker. When institutions compare XRP to traditional assets, they aren't looking to replace everything. They're looking to rebalance. Even a small percentage shift, 1% or 2% from trillions under management, would send a shockwave through the XRP market. For individual retirement investors, this comparison is even sharper. The old assets will still exist, but XRP offers something they never could: exposure to a system of payments already in motion. And if the numbers and logic make sense on paper, the next driver is even stronger: real human stories of people discovering XRP for their retirement. Part 8. Linda's story. Sometimes the shift isn't about charts or liquidity, it's about people. Meet Linda, a 62-year-old nurse from Ohio. She spent 4 decades working double shifts, building her retirement around a pension and a modest 401k. But like many Americans, she watched inflation erode her savings, and bond yields barely kept pace with rising costs. One evening, after hearing her son talk about XRP, she started researching. What she discovered wasn't a meme coin. It was a network already used by banks for cross-border payments. She learned that through a crypto IRA, she could add XRP to her Roth account, legally, safely, and for the long term. For Linda, it wasn't about chasing riches. It was about securing dignity, about knowing she could support herself without fear of outliving her money. Today, she tells her story with a quiet conviction. If institutions are preparing to move, why shouldn't I prepare too? This is my retirement. I can't afford to wait until Wall Street decides for me. Linda's journey isn't unique. It's a mirror of thousands asking the same question: dependence on old systems or independence with something new. And that takes us directly into the heart of the next comparison: dependence versus independence. Part 9. Dependence versus independence. Retirement has always been framed as dependence. Dependence on pensions, dependence on Social Security, dependence on systems that promise stability, but often deliver uncertainty. For decades, people worked hard only to discover that rising costs, broken promises, and market downturns left them with far less than they expected. That's dependence, trusting a system built to serve itself, not you. Independence looks different. Independence means building a retirement account that isn't shackled to outdated rails. Independence is holding an asset like XRP that clears in seconds, costs pennies to move, and is already connected to the same banks and institutions planning to enter. Independence is taking the same tools Wall Street is preparing to use and claiming them now for your own future. And here's the truth. Dependence means waiting for permission, but independence means acting before the crowd. Dependence means settling for what's left, while independence means writing your own retirement story. That's why XRP inside an IRA or Roth IRA is more than a strategy. It's a choice between living on someone else's terms or securing your freedom on your own. And this choice sets the stage for the final truth. the vision line that defines where retirement truly begins. Part 10. The final truth. When institutions finally commit, the landscape will never look the same. Liquidity will deepen, ETFs will open the floodgates, banks will normalize digital rails, and the price levels we see today will vanish into history. By then, the decision will no longer be about opportunity, it will be about catching up. For retirement investors, the truth is simple. You have a window right now that institutions don't control. Once they arrive, their size will set the rules. But today, you still have independence, the ability to prepare on your terms, not theirs. And here lies the choice. Wait for Wall Street to decide your future, or claim it before they do. That's not just about investing. It's about legacy, security, and dignity in retirement. Vision line. Retirement isn't built by waiting. It's built by the decision you make today. This is the truth institutions don't tell you. The system is moving, with or without you. The only question left is, will you step in before the gates close? Institutional adoption is no longer a theory. It's the reality forming in front of us. Banks are testing, pension funds are running models, ETF pressure is building, and the liquidity is ready. When Wall Street commits, there won't be announcements for retail investors to get ready. It will already be done. The wave will crash, and those who prepared will ride it. Those who hesitated will watch it pass them by. And that's why your decision today matters. With a crypto IRA that includes XRP, you're not chasing hype. You're positioning yourself in the same direction as the largest institutions on Earth. This isn't about getting rich overnight. It's about securing dignity, independence, and freedom in retirement. Remember the vision line we carried through this episode. Retirement isn't built by waiting. It's built by the decision you make today. So take action now. Comment below. Which institution do you think will announce XRP first? Share this video with a friend planning for retirement. And hit subscribe to XRP Today USA, because the future of retirement is being decided now, not tomorrow. Disclaimer. This video is for educational purposes only and is not financial advice.